A silver Lamborghini crashes into a vintage Mercedes on Atlanta's bustling streets, sparks flying as metal meets metal. A furious white man, Owen Caldwell, storms out, ignoring the battered car of Celeste Morgan, a stunning black billionaire. His rage boils over, and in a shocking moment, he slams his fist into her stomach, leaving her crumpled on the pavement. Will justice prevail against such brutality? What secrets hide behind this collision? Stay tuned to uncover a riveting tale of vengeance and triumph. Where are you listening from? Drop it in the comments and share your predictions. How will Celeste rise? Smash that subscribe button to catch our latest stories and join our community. Your support fuels these epic sagas, so please comment, subscribe, and let's embark on this unforgettable journey together. Can Celeste turn pain into power? You won't believe what happens next. The Atlanta skyline shimmered under a relentless sun, its glass towers reflecting ambition like mirrors of destiny. Peachtree Street pulsed with the city's heartbeat, honking cabs, clicking heels, and the low hum of dreams chasing power. At the heart of this chaos stood Celeste Morgan, a 34-year-old billionaire whose presence commanded the air itself. Her vibrant pink gown, off the shoulder and tailored to her statuesque frame, flowed like liquid defiance, catching every eye as she stepped from her vintage 2012 Mercedes. The car, its silver paint dulled by time, was a relic of her early struggles, kept not for flash but for memory, a reminder of the girl who'd clawed her way from nothing. Her braids cascaded down her back, swaying with each purposeful step, and her eyes, sharp as obsidian, burned with a fire that could ignite revolutions. Celeste's destination was the Four Seasons, a sleek fortress of wealth where she was set to sign a $1 billion deal with Nexus Intelligence, an AI startup promising to transform healthcare diagnostics. The contract was more than a transaction. It was a beacon of her life's mission, to uplift communities through technology, to give voice to those the world ignored. As she slid into the driver's seat, the leather creaked softly, grounding her in the moment. Her phone buzzed, and a text from her assistant, Maya, flashed on the screen. Nexus CEO confirms 2 p.m., docs ready. Celeste's lips curved into a smile, her mind already racing through the deal's intricacies. The contract's clauses, ethical AI deployment, community reinvestment, were her handiwork, forged through years of outsmarting boardrooms that underestimated her. She eased the Mercedes into traffic, the city's rhythm syncing with her pulse. The radio played a low jazz tune, but Celeste's thoughts drowned it out. At 22, she'd been a nobody, scraping by in a one-room apartment, coding late into the night to build Morgan Ventures. Now her empire spanned continents, a $2 billion portfolio that funded equitable tech. Yet this deal felt different, personal. Nexus's AI could save lives in underserved clinics, places like the one that failed her mother years ago. The thought tightened her grip on the wheel, her manicured nails glinting against the worn leather. She wasn't just signing papers today, she was rewriting futures. The light turned green, and Celeste maneuvered through Lenox Road's bustle, her gown's hem brushing the floorboard. Passers-by stared, a black woman in a radiant dress, driving a car that screamed modesty in a city obsessed with flash. She didn't care. The Mercedes was her talisman, a piece of the past that fueled her fire. She remembered the day she bought it, secondhand, with her first big paycheck. Her mother's voice had echoed in her ear. "Keep your roots, Celeste, but grow wings." Those words carried her through every slight, every closed door, every whispered doubt about her skin or her audacity. Her phone pinged again, this time an email from Nexus's CEO, Owen Caldwell. Looking forward to sealing the future, it read, slick and rehearsed. Celeste's brow furrowed. Something about Owen's tone, too polished, too eager, pricked her instincts. She'd vetted Nexus thoroughly, its tech promising, but its financials opaque. Still, the potential outweighed the risk, and her due diligence was ironclad. She mentally reviewed the contract, $1 billion over 5 years, with Morgan Ventures retaining oversight to prevent misuse. Her team had spent months ensuring no loopholes, no surprises. Yet a faint unease lingered, like a shadow at the edge of her vision. The traffic thickened, horns blaring as Atlanta's elite rushed to their empires. Celeste's mind drifted to her team at Morgan Ventures, a diverse crew she'd handpicked. Coders, strategists, dreamers who'd been overlooked like she once was. They'd be watching today's deal, knowing it was their victory too. She pictured Maya, her assistant, organizing the documents with her usual precision, and Jamal, her lead engineer, ready to integrate Nexus's tech. This wasn't just her moment, it was theirs. A red light halted her, and Celeste leaned back, the gown's silk cool against her skin. The city's pulse thrummed outside, vendors shouting, heels clicking, dreams colliding. She glanced at the dashboard clock. 9:15 a.m. Plenty of time to reach the Four Seasons, review the terms, and step into the boardroom as the architect of change. Her reflection in the rearview mirror showed a woman forged in fire, unbreakable, undeniable. The light turned green, and she pressed the gas, the Mercedes humming forward, carrying her toward a destiny she'd written herself. But fate, like Atlanta's traffic, had a way of swerving. The city's gleam hid its underbelly, and Celeste, for all her brilliance, couldn't see the storm waiting just beyond the next intersection. Her gown, her car, her resolve. They were armor, but the world was about to test their strength. For now she drove on, a queen in a humble chariot, her heart alight with the promise of a better tomorrow. The air on Lenox Road crackled with Atlanta's midday fervor, a symphony of revving engines and impatient horns. Celeste Morgan, her pink gown a vivid slash against the city's gray pulse, gripped the wheel of her vintage Mercedes, its engine purring steadily. She was a vision of grace, her braids swaying as she navigated the crowded artery. Her mind fixed on the $1 billion deal awaiting her at the Four Seasons. The dashboard clock glowed 9:20 a.m., leaving her ample time to conquer the day. But fate, like a predator, lurked in the city's veins, and it struck with a deafening crunch. A silver Lamborghini slammed into the Mercedes' rear, the impact jolting Celeste forward, her seatbelt biting into her shoulder. The world stilled for a heartbeat, the jazz on the radio drowned by the screech of metal. Her pulse surged, but her composure held like steel. She eased the car to the curb, stepping out with a dancer's poise, the gown's hem brushing the pavement. The dented bumper of her Mercedes glared back, a wound on her trusted companion. She adjusted her dress, her eyes narrowing as she assessed the damage, already calculating the next move. From the Lamborghini emerged Owen Caldwell, a 40-year-old tech mogul whose tailored suit and slick-back hair screamed old money and unchecked ego. His face was a mask of fury, his blue eyes blazing as he stormed toward his car's hood, inspecting a faint scratch as if it were a mortal blow. "You idiot!" he roared, his voice slicing through the street's din, drawing curious glances from passersby. "Do you know what this car costs? $500,000, and you've ruined it." He didn't spare a glance for Celeste's Mercedes, its dent far worse than his scratch, his entitlement a wall between them. Celeste stood tall, her presence a quiet storm. "You rear-ended me, sir," she said, her voice steady, each word weighted with authority. "You didn't maintain a safe distance. By Georgia law, that makes you liable." Her knowledge was a blade honed by years of navigating a world that questioned her every step. Owen's sneer twisted, his gaze raking over her skin, her gown, her car. "A black woman in a junker like this?" he spat, stepping closer, his cologne sharp and invasive. "You're a roadblock to success, sweetheart. People like you don't belong on my streets." The insult landed like a whip, but Celeste's eyes didn't waver. She'd faced worse. Boardrooms that dismissed her, investors who mocked her vision. "The law doesn't care about your car's price tag," she countered, her tone icy. "Rear-end collisions are the following driver's fault. No exceptions unless proven otherwise." She cited the statute with precision, her mind a fortress of facts. Owen's laugh was venomous, a low guttural sound that chilled the air. "Oh, look at you playing lawyer," he mocked, his voice dripping with condescension. "Don't act smart. It doesn't suit you." Celeste's jaw tightened, a flicker of rage sparking beneath her calm. She'd built an empire defying men like him, and she wouldn't be baited. "I'm calling my insurance," she said, pulling out her phone. her fingers steady despite the fire in her chest. "We're done here." She turned toward her car, her braids swinging like a pendulum, signaling the end of his audience. But Owen's face flushed crimson, his ego a beast unleashed. "You don't walk away from me," he bellowed, his voice a thunderclap that silenced the street's hum. He lunged, closing the gap in a heartbeat, his presence a looming threat. Celeste froze, her instincts screaming, but she held her ground, her phone still in hand. "Step back," she warned, her voice low, a blade wrapped in silk. Owen's eyes glinted with malice, his breath heavy with rage. "You think you can talk to me like that?" he hissed, his hand twitching as if itching to strike. The crowd, shoppers, drivers, a street vendor, watched, some reaching for phones, others whispering. Celeste's heart pounded, but her gaze didn't falter. "You're making a mistake," she said, her words a quiet dare, her strength a shield against his venom. Owen's smirk returned, a predator's grin. "The only mistake is you being here," he snarled, his voice loud enough to carry across the street. He gestured at her Mercedes, its dent a badge of his recklessness. "Pay for my car, or I'll make sure you regret it." Celeste shook her head, her resolve unbreakable. "You'll hear from my lawyer," she said, turning again, her gown catching the sunlight like a beacon. Owen's rage boiled over, his control slipping like sand. He took a step, his shadow falling over her, the air thick with the promise of violence. The city held its breath, unaware that this moment would ignite a fire that would burn empires to ash. The Atlanta sun beat down on Lenox Road, its heat a merciless witness to the standoff between Celeste Morgan and Owen Caldwell. Celeste, her pink gown radiant despite the tension, stood resolute, her phone in hand, ready to end the confrontation with a call to her insurance. Owen's venomous words, "You don't walk away from me," still echoed, his rage a palpable force that thickened the air. The crowd of onlookers, frozen on the sidewalk, sensed the brewing storm, their phones poised to capture whatever came next. Celeste's eyes, sharp and unyielding, met Owen's, her voice a low warning. "You're making a mistake." But Owen, his face a mask of unchecked fury, was beyond reason, his ego a beast that demanded submission. In a flash, he lunged, his fist a blur of malice. It slammed into Celeste's stomach with a sickening thud, the blow stealing her breath and buckling her knees. Pain exploded through her core, a white-hot fire that blurred the world. She crumpled to the pavement, her gown pooling around her like spilled wine, the phone clattering from her hand. Gasps rippled through the crowd, a woman's cry piercing the stunned silence. Owen, his chest heaving, glared down at her for a split second, his sneer a twisted victory. Without a word, he spun on his heel, strode to his silver Lamborghini, and roared away, the engine's growl a cruel farewell as Celeste lay gasping, her vision swimming. The city's pulse seemed to falter, the hum of traffic muted by the shock of what had just unfolded. Celeste's mind fought through the haze, her body screaming, but her spirit clawing for control. Her braids splayed across the asphalt, dust streaking the pink silk of her dress. Yet even in pain, she was a figure of defiance, a queen struck but unbroken. The crowd stirred, some stepping closer, others whispering, their phones still recording. But one figure moved with purpose, a frail, elderly woman, her gray hair pulled into a neat bun, her hands trembling as she pushed through the onlookers. Mrs. Evelyn Harper, 70 years old and barely 5 feet tall, knelt beside Celeste, her weathered hands hovering with a mother's care. "Oh, dear Lord, stay with me, child," she whispered, her voice a lifeline in the chaos. Her gray eyes, clouded with age but sharp with compassion, scanned Celeste's face. She fumbled for her phone, her arthritic fingers dialing 911 with surprising speed. "We need an ambulance on Lenox Road now," she barked, her tone fierce despite her fragility. "A young woman's been hurt. Some coward hit her and ran." The crowd parted as Evelyn's voice carried, her authority undeniable. A grandmother's wrath awakened. Celeste's breaths came in shallow gasps, each one a battle against the pain radiating from her abdomen. She tried to speak, to thank the woman, but her voice was a faint rasp. Evelyn's hand found hers, squeezing gently, her touch grounding Celeste in the storm. "You're gonna be all right," Evelyn murmured, brushing a braid from Celeste's face. "Ain't nobody leaving you here." The wail of sirens grew closer, cutting through Atlanta's din, and Evelyn stayed put, her presence a shield against the world's indifference. Paramedics burst onto the scene, their movements swift and practiced. They lifted Celeste onto a stretcher, her gown now streaked with dust and sweat, her dignity battered but intact. Evelyn followed, clutching Celeste's phone, which she'd retrieved from the pavement. "I've got her things," she told a paramedic, her voice firm. "Take care of her." As the ambulance doors closed, Celeste's eyes flickered open, meeting Evelyn's for a fleeting moment. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible, but heavy with gratitude. Evelyn nodded, tears glistening in her eyes, and the ambulance sped toward Emory University Hospital. Inside the sterile chaos of the emergency room, Celeste lay on a gurney, the pain dulled by adrenaline, but still a throbbing reminder of Owen's cruelty. Nurses bustled around her, checking vitals, bandaging her scraped wrist from the fall. Her abdomen ached with every breath, but her mind was already sharpening, replaying the assault, cataloging Owen's face, his words, his arrogance. Her phone, now in a nurse's care, buzzed incessantly. Missed calls from Maya, her assistant, and Nexus Intelligence's team. The 2 p.m. deal loomed, a dream now teetering on the edge of ruin. Yet Celeste's spirit burned brighter than her pain, a fire that refused to be snuffed out. Evelyn waited in the hospital's lobby, her hands clasped tightly, praying for the woman she'd saved. She didn't know Celeste was a billionaire, didn't know the empire she commanded. To her, Celeste was a daughter, a sister, a soul wronged by a world too quick to strike. As a nurse updated her, Celeste was stable, conscious, but needed rest. Evelyn's heart eased. She left her name and number with the staff, vowing to check on that brave girl later. Outside, Atlanta churned on, oblivious to the spark that had just been struck, a spark that would soon ignite a reckoning. Duoy Jai La, Chapter 5, The Confrontation and Collapse. Kuakichban, Celeste's Triumph, a Black Billionaire's Justice. Josh Viet Bang Ting and Voy Jodai, Orto Firmerson Sotu. Kudelai Ortso no 74. Theo Pongkach Kechuyen Kichting, Loikwan Humot Nha Wan Tuktu, Tap Trung Vau Viek Kwan Hut Ngoi, Ge Ma Kong Lanman Sang Noidung Kwa Chong Truak Huak Chong Sao. Noidung Juak Bog Trong Ther, Voikung Artifacted, Nukich Ban Truak Je Jam Bao Tin, Lientok, Theo Hongdan. Kong Je Kap Jen Tang Dangai, Chitap Trong Vau Sukian Celeste, Joy Jiao Voy Owen Tekwok, Hop Va Su Sup Jo Kua, Nexus Intelligence. The sterile hum of Emory University Hospital's corridors did little to dull the fire in Celeste Morgan's chest. She lay in her hospital bed, her navy suit now a shield against the bruises that throbbed beneath, her braids neatly tucked under a cap. The pain from Owen Caldwell's assault, a brutal punch to her stomach, lingered, but her spirit was a furnace, burning brighter with each passing hour. Her phone, recovered by the compassionate Mrs. Evelyn Harper, buzzed incessantly, its screen a mosaic of missed calls. 47 from her assistant Maya, 12 from Nexus Intelligence's team. The $1 billion deal was in tatters, but Celeste's resolve was granite. She texted Maya, her fingers steady despite the ache. Reschedule for noon tomorrow. 4 seasons. The world had struck her down, but she would rise, and Owen would learn the cost of his cruelty. Across Atlanta, in the opulent shadows of his Buckhead penthouse, Owen Caldwell paced like a caged predator. His tailored suit hung loose, his slick-back hair disheveled, his eyes wild with paranoia. He'd assumed Celeste, his would-be investor, had flaked, a betrayal that stoked his arrogance. Nexus Intelligence, his AI startup, was a house of cards, a front for laundering millions through inflated contracts, and her $1 billion was its lifeline. Her absence gnawed at him, a crack in his carefully curated empire. He barked orders at his assistant, demanding updates, his voice a venomous rasp. "Find her," he snarled, oblivious to the storm brewing beyond his gilded walls. That storm had a name, Justice. Mrs. Evelyn Harper, the elderly savior who'd knelt by Celeste's side, carried the weight of what she'd witnessed to her church group that evening. Her voice trembled as she recounted the attack, her gray eyes fierce with indignation. "That man thought he could break her and run," she said, her words igniting murmurs of outrage. A young congregant, Jamal, a coder with a knack for social media, pulled out his phone. He'd found a grainy dash cam clip from a nearby car on a local forum, capturing Owen's fist striking Celeste, her body crumpling, his Lamborghini speeding away. With Evelyn's blessing, Jamal posted it online, his caption a cry for accountability. "Black woman attacked by rich white man after crash. Where's justice?" By dawn, the video was a wildfire, scorching through social media with 2 million views. Hashtags like "Koisha Justice for Celeste" and "No More Silence" trended globally, the clips shared by activists, influencers, and everyday voices outraged by Owen's cruelty. Comments flooded in. "This is sickening. Who is he? She deserves justice." The internet's pulse quickened, a digital jury assembling to condemn the unseen mogul. In her hospital room, Celeste saw the video on her phone, Maya's urgent text alerting her. "It's everywhere. You okay?" Celeste's jaw tightened, her eyes not with fear, but with resolve. The world was watching, and she'd wield that power like a blade. Owen, holed up in his penthouse, remained blind to the chaos. He spent the night spinning lies to his board, claiming Celeste's absence proved her unreliability. "She's a nobody," he sneered, pouring whiskey with a trembling hand. His team nodded, their loyalty bought by promises of wealth, unaware their empire was crumbling. Owen's phone buzzed with a board member's warning. "Check Twitter. Trouble brewing." He scoffed, dismissing it as noise, his arrogance a fortress against the truth. But the truth was a tide, and it was rising fast. Celeste, discharged from the hospital, moved with purpose. She met Evelyn at the hospital's cafe, her navy suit crisp despite the bandages beneath. Evelyn's weathered hands clasped hers, her voice soft but fierce. "You're stronger than he'll ever know," she said, her gray eyes glistening. Celeste handed her a $10,000 check for her community center, her voice warm. "You saved me, Mrs. Harper. This is for your work." Evelyn's tears fell, but her smile was radiant. "You're saving others, child." The moment grounded Celeste, a spark of humanity amidst her brewing storm. Back at Morgan Ventures, Celeste huddled with Maya, their office a war room. The viral video was a weapon, but Celeste needed a strategy. She reviewed Nexus's leaked emails, slipped to her by a whistleblower, detailing Owen's money laundering scheme. "He's sloppy," she murmured, noting offshore accounts tied to fake vendors. Maya prepped a dossier for tomorrow's meeting, her fingers flying over her laptop. "The board won't know what hit them," she said, her grin fierce. Celeste nodded, her mind a chessboard, each move calculated. She'd confront Owen at the Four Seasons, not as a victim, but as a force. As she drove to her loft, Atlanta's skyline glowed, a city poised for reckoning. Her Mercedes hummed, its dents a badge of her fight. Social media buzzed with her name, the video now at 3 million views. Protesters planning a rally outside Nexus's headquarters. Celeste touched her phone, a tweet catching her eye. "Celeste Morgan's story is ours. Fight on." Her lips curved, a predator's resolve. Owen thought he'd broken her, but he'd lit a spark that would burn his world to ash. Tomorrow she'd walk into that boardroom, her truth a torch, ready to ignite justice. The Four Seasons conference room gleamed with sterile opulence, its mahogany table and crystal chandelier, a stage for Atlanta's elite. Celeste Morgan strode through the double doors, her navy suit a sharp contrast to the pink gown of yesterday's ordeal, its crisp lines masking the bruises that throbbed beneath. Her braids were pulled into a sleek bun, her eyes blazing with a fury honed to a razor's edge. The viral video of Owen Caldwell's assault, his fist slamming into her stomach, had set the city alight, but Celeste carried that fire within her, a weapon she'd wield today. The clock on the wall ticked past noon, and the rescheduled meeting with Nexus Intelligence was no longer about a $1 billion deal. It was about justice. Owen Caldwell lounged at the table's head, his tailored suit pristine, his smirk a mask of arrogance. Flanked by his board, 6 executives in starched shirts, their faces a mix of boredom and greed. He exuded the confidence of a man untouchable. The room buzzed with low chatter, Nexus's team oblivious to the storm about to break. Owen's eyes flicked to Celeste as she entered, his smirk faltering for a fraction of a second. Recognition dawned, then horror, his face paling as if drained by a ghost. "You," he stammered, his voice a cracked whisper, barely audible over the hum of the air conditioning. Celeste's gaze was ice, unyielding. "Yes, me," she said, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. "Celeste Morgan, your would-be investor." She slid the contract across the table, its pages a silent indictment. "This deal is dead. You assaulted me, Mr. Caldwell, and I don't fund criminals." The words landed like a thunderclap, the board stirring, their eyes darting between Owen and the woman who commanded the room. Owen's hands gripped the table, knuckles whitening. "That was a misunderstanding," he blustered, his voice rising, a desperate bid to reclaim control. "You can't just—" Celeste raised a hand, silencing him with the authority of a queen. "No lies," she said, her tone low but lethal. She nodded to Maya, her assistant, who stood by a projector, her fingers swift on a tablet. The screen flared to life, and the viral dashcam video filled the room. Owen's fist striking Celeste, her body crumpling, his sneer as he fled in his Lamborghini. Gasps erupted, a female executive clutching her pearls, another covering her mouth. Owen's face drained of color, his bravado crumbling like ash. The video looped, each frame a nail in his coffin, the room's air growing heavy with shock. "You thought you could silence me," Celeste said, stepping forward, her presence towering. "You thought your wealth, your power, could erase what you did. But the world sees you now." She turned to the board, her voice steady but searing. "Nexus Intelligence is a fraud. Your AI is a front for money laundering, inflated contracts hiding dirty cash. I've seen the emails, the offshore accounts. This ends today." The executives froze, their eyes wide, some shifting away from Owen as if his guilt might stain them. A balding man in a gray suit stammered, "We didn't know." But Celeste cut him off. "You should have." Owen lurched to his feet, his voice a rasp. "You set me up," he roared, pointing a trembling finger. "This is a witch hunt." But his words were hollow, drowned by the video's relentless truth. Celeste's lips twitched, a ghost of a smile. "You set yourself up when you raised your fist." She nodded to Maya, who distributed folders to the board. Leaked emails detailing Owen's scheme, bank records of $10 million funneled through shell companies. The evidence was a fortress, unassailable, and the board's whispers turned to panic. By 1 p.m., the room was a graveyard of Owen's ambitions. The executives, now pale and sweating, murmured about damage control, their loyalty to Owen evaporating. Celeste stood at the table's head, her authority unquestioned. "I'll ensure every investor, every regulator knows the truth," she declared. "Nexus is finished." She turned to leave, her heels clicking like a metronome of fate, but paused at the door, her gaze locking on Owen. "You thought you broke me," she said, her voice low, cutting. "You were wrong." Outside, Atlanta churned, unaware of the empire crumbling within. By mid-afternoon, the video's reach exploded. 5 million views, hashtags like Chaksha Justice for Celeste and Chudiyashar Boycott Nexus trending globally. Investors yanked funding, citing Owen's violence and the leaked emails now circulating online. Protesters swarmed Nexus's glass headquarters, their signs a sea of rage. "No more violence, no more lies." Owen's board abandoned him, issuing a statement distancing themselves, their careers now tethered to a sinking ship. The FBI, alerted by an anonymous tip, Celeste's doing, opened an investigation, agents already tracing the offshore accounts. Owen fled the Four Seasons, his suit wrinkled, his eyes wild. He ducked into a waiting car, but the city's pulse rejected him, its streets alive with the cry for justice. Celeste, back at Morgan Ventures, stood by her office window, the skyline a canvas of possibility. Her bruises ached, but her spirit soared. She'd shattered Owen's world, not with vengeance, but with truth. The $1 billion deal was gone, but her resolve was ironclad. She touched the Mercedes key in her pocket, a relic of her journey, and whispered to the empty room, "This is just the beginning." The Atlanta skyline shimmered under a late afternoon haze, its towers a testament to ambition and resilience. Inside the grand ballroom of the Georgia Aquarium, a sea of faces, journalists, activists, community leaders, gathered under the soft glow of chandeliers, their anticipation a palpable hum. Celeste Morgan stood at the podium, her white blazer a symbol of renewal, its sharp lines framing her statuesque figure. Her braids cascaded freely, and her eyes, alight with purpose, scanned the crowd. The bruises from Owen Caldwell's assault still ached beneath her suit, but they fueled her fire, a reminder of the violence she was here to dismantle. Today, she would unveil the Morgan Justice Fund, redirecting her $1 billion from a tainted deal to a cause that would echo through generations. The room fell silent as Celeste leaned into the microphone, her voice resonant, a clarion call that filled every corner. "This isn't about revenge," she declared, her words cutting through the air like a blade. "It's about building a world where no one is silenced by fear." The crowd leaned forward, hanging on her every syllable. She paused, letting the weight of her intent settle. "The Morgan Justice Fund will invest $1 billion to combat societal violence, support survivors, and empower communities to rise above oppression." Applause erupted, a thunderous wave that shook the glass walls. But Celeste's gaze remained steady, her heart a furnace of resolve. She gestured to a screen behind her, where a video played, images of survivors sharing their stories, of children in community centers learning to code, of protests demanding justice. "This fund is for them," she said, her voice softening but no less commanding. "For the women struck down, the voices ignored, the dreams crushed by those who think power is a fist." The crowd's energy surged, a collective nod to her vision. Celeste's mind flickered to the viral video of Owen's attack, now a global rallying cry. She'd turned that pain into purpose, and this fund was its embodiment. Her first act was personal. She invited Mrs. Evelyn Harper, the elderly woman who'd saved her, onto the stage. Evelyn, dressed in a modest lavender suit, walked with a cane, her gray eyes bright with pride. The crowd rose to their feet as Celeste handed her a $100,000 grant for her community center. "You gave me hope when I lay broken," Celeste said, her voice thick with gratitude, clasping Evelyn's trembling hand. "This is for every life you've touched." Evelyn's tears glistened, and she whispered, "You're the hope, child." The moment was electric, a spark that ignited the room's soul. Celeste outlined the fund's mission: grants for survivor advocacy, tech training for marginalized youth, and legal aid for those fighting abuse. She'd already pledged $20 million to Atlanta's shelters, her team working overnight to ensure the funds reached those in need. The crowd murmured in awe, journalists scribbling furiously, their pens racing to capture her audacity. But Celeste's vision went beyond charity. It was a movement. "We're not just healing wounds," she said, her voice rising. "We're forging a future where violence has no place." The applause was deafening, a chorus of belief in the world she was building. Back at Morgan Ventures, her team buzzed with pride, their internal forums alight with messages. "Celeste is changing the game. We're with her." Employees, from coders to executives, volunteered to mentor fund grantees, their faith in her unshakable. Celeste's office, now a command center, was adorned with thank you notes from survivors: a young mother who'd escaped abuse, a teen whose app fought street violence. One note from a girl named Aisha stood out: "Your strength saved me. I'm coding because of you." Celeste's throat tightened as she pinned it to her board, a reminder of why she fought. The city felt the ripple. Social media exploded with Arsha Morgan Justice Fund trending alongside She Justice for Celeste. Activists shared Celeste's speech, their posts amassing millions of likes. A local news anchor called her Atlanta's conscience, and the hashtag No More Silence trended as survivors worldwide shared their stories. Celeste monitored the response from her tablet, her lips curving faintly. She'd expected skepticism. Billionaires were rarely trusted, but the outpouring was raw, real, a testament to her authenticity. Yet the weight of responsibility pressed against her. In a quiet moment, she visited Aisha, an 18-year-old grantee whose anti-violence app echoed Celeste's own dreams at that age. Aisha, wiry and fierce, demoed her prototype in a cramped community center, her eyes shining with ambition. "This app alerts cops to assaults in real time," she explained, her voice steady. Celeste saw herself in Aisha's fire, the girl she'd been before the world tried to break her. "You're why I keep going," she told Aisha, handing her a $50,000 grant. Aisha's hug was fierce, her whisper fierce. "I won't stop." Celeste's heart swelled, a rare crack in her armor. As she drove back to her office, Atlanta's skyline glittered, a canvas of possibility. The Mercedes' familiar hum grounded her, its worn seats a reminder of her roots. Owen's assault had scarred her, but it had also forged her resolve. The fun wasn't just money, it was a vow, a blade to cut through the world's cruelty. She touched the key in her pocket, its edges soft from years of carrying her forward. The city pulsed around her, alive with the promise of change, and Celeste knew she was its architect, building a legacy that would outlive any foe. The Atlanta skyline glittered against the velvet night, its spires a constellation of dreams forged in fire. Celeste Morgan stood in her office, atop Morgan Ventures Tower, a sanctuary of glass and resolve. Her silk blouse, a soft ivory, replaced the armor of her tailored suits, her braids loose, swaying as she paced. At 34, she was no longer just the billionaire who toppled Owen Caldwell's corrupt empire. She was a visionary whose Morgan Justice Fund had ignited a global movement. Tonight, on the eve of the Tech Inclusion Summit, where she'd addressed 10,000 industry leaders, Celeste's heart thrummed with the weight of her journey, a journey that had transformed pain into a flame that would not die. Her office hummed with quiet purpose, its walls adorned with tokens of her impact. A framed thank you from Aisha, the young coder whose anti-violence app was now saving lives. A photo of Mrs. Evelyn Harper's community center, rebuilt with her grant. A worn Mercedes key, a relic of her roots. Celeste's tablet glowed with her keynote draft, a bold unveiling of an open-source AI framework to combat violence. A gift to the world, coded by her team to predict and prevent assaults in real time. The speech was more than a presentation. It was a vow, a declaration that her legacy would outlive the scars Owen had left. She paused by the window, Atlanta's lights a tapestry of resilience. Her hand grazed the faint scar on her abdomen, a reminder of Owen's fist, now a badge of her triumph. His name was Ash, his trial looming, his life reduced to odd jobs in a city that had forgotten him. But Celeste's focus wasn't on his ruin, it was on creation. Morgan Ventures thrived, its $2 billion portfolio fueling equitable tech across continents. The Morgan Justice Fund had awarded $15 million to 150 survivors, its grants empowering women to start businesses, youth to code futures, and communities to heal. Yet the summit loomed as her greatest stage, a chance to redefine an industry long tainted by greed. A knock broke her reverie. Maya, her assistant, entered, tablet in hand, her eyes bright with excitement. "Your keynote's trending already," she said, swiping to show social media posts. "Celeste Morgan to unveil AI that fights violence? Game changer." Celeste nodded, her lips curving faintly. "Good. Let's make sure Aisha's demo is ready." Aisha's app, now integrated into the framework, would be showcased live, a testament to the fund's impact. Maya hesitated, then grinned. "Also, Evelyn Harper called. She's speaking at our gala next month. Says you're her hero." Celeste's throat tightened, a rare softness breaking through her steel. "She's mine," she replied, her voice low. The summit's weight pressed against her. Celeste reviewed her speech, her pen dancing over notes. She'd open with her story, not the assault, but the girl who'd coded in a cramped apartment, dreaming of change. "Failure forged me," she'd say, owning the doubts that once haunted her. The AI framework, free to all, would challenge tech giants to prioritize impact over profit. Her team had spent months perfecting it, Jamal's algorithms ensuring accuracy, Aisha's interface making it accessible. The industry would resist, profit was their god, but Celeste's evidence was ironclad. Pilot tests had reduced violence in 3 cities by 20%. Her phone buzzed, a message from Aisha. "App's ready. Thank you for believing in me. Celeste's smile deepened, her fingers typing a reply. You're the future. Shine tomorrow. She thought of Aisha's fire, so like her own at 18 before the world tried to dim it. The fun wasn't just grants, it was a spark, kindling dreams that Owen's kind had crushed. Social media buzzed with summit anticipation, Tech for Justice trending as activists and coders rallied behind her. A tweet caught her eye, Celeste Morgan's Rewriting Tech Soul. She retweeted it, adding, "Together, we build better." The city's pulse echoed her own, a rhythm of possibility. Celeste walked to her desk, where a stack of grant applications awaited, proposals for apps, shelters, and legal clinics. She read one from a survivor named Maria, whose AI tool tracked harassment in workplaces. Celeste approved a $75,000 grant on the spot, her pen a wand weaving futures. Her wrist ached faintly, a ghost of Owen's violence. But it only sharpened her resolve. She'd turned his cruelty into a movement, and the summit would amplify it. A final email arrived from Jamal, confirming the framework's security. No hacks, no leaks. We're ready. Celeste exhaled, her trust in her team absolute. She stood, gazing at the skyline. Atlanta a crucible that had forged her. The girl who'd wept over lost dreams was gone, replaced by a woman who built empires. Her phone pinged again, a thank you from a grantee whose shelter had saved 50 women. Celeste's heart swelled, the weight of impact grounding her. She touched the Mercedes key, its edges worn but unyielding, a vow kept. As she powered down her monitors, the tower's hum faded, leaving only the city's heartbeat. Tomorrow she'd face the world's stage, her voice a flame no darkness could quench. She whispered to the night, "Justice isn't ending them, it's building better." Atlanta slept, its pulse a testament to her triumph, and Celeste stood tall, the architect of a world where respect outlived fear. Thank you for joining Celeste Morgan's epic saga of resilience and justice. What stirred your soul in her journey from pain to power? Share your thoughts in the comments. Did her fire inspire you? Tell us where you're tuning in from. Your voices fuel our storytelling, so hit that subscribe button to catch our next empowering tale. A huge thank you for being part of our community. Your support keeps these stories alive. Stay bold, stay true, and we'll meet again for another unforgettable adventure. Let's keep the flame burning.